Okay, good day. Today's discussion, we will try to answer the question, what is the role of feelings in making moral decisions? We make moral decisions daily. Have you noticed that some decisions are automatic responses and that we are not consciously deciding at all? For example, you help an elderly cross the road without thinking, you run to the opposite side of the road away from some perceived danger. Your desire to help and your fear of danger are gut reactions, while reasoned argument is just swirling beneath conscious awareness. Today, we will address the following questions. What is the role of feelings in moral decisions? How can we make reasoned and impartial decisions? How emotions help in making the right decisions? To answer these questions, we will discuss David Hume's theory of the mind and Max Ferdinand Scheller's philosophy of feelings. Who is David Hume? David Hume was a Scottish Enlightenment philosopher, historian, economist, librarian, and essayist, who is best known today for his highly influential system of philosophical empiricism, skepticism, and naturalism. David Hume famously placed himself in the opposition to most moral philosophers, ancient to modern, who argued to regulate actions using reason and that reason has dominion over feelings or emotions. Hume is best known in ethics for asserting these four theses. Number one, reason alone cannot be a motive to the will, but rather is the slave of passions. Moral distinctions are not derived from reason. Another one, moral distinctions are derived from moral sentiments, that is, the feelings of approval and disapproval felt by spectators who contemplate a character trait of action. And number four, while some virtues and vices are natural, others, including justice, are considered to be artificial. As the title of the treatise proclaims, Hume's subject is about human nature. He summarizes his project in its subtitle, an attempt to introduce the experimental method into moral subjects. In his day, moral meant anything concerned with human nature, not just ethics, as he makes clear at the beginning of the first inquiry, where he defines moral philosophy as the science of human nature. Hume's aim is to bring the scientific method to bear on the study of human nature. From this, it has focused on feelings as instinctive and trained response to moral dilemmas. Hume maintained that although reason is needed to discover the facts of any concrete situation, reason alone is insufficient to yield a judgment that something is virtuous or vicious. Hume sided with the moral sense theorist that a person gains awareness of moral good and evil by experiencing the pleasure of approval and the uneasiness of disapproval. According to Hume's theory of the mind, humans have what we call passions, which he used to describe as emotions, desires, or heightened feelings. He considered this as impressions rather than ideas, which is original, vivid, and lively perceptions that are not copied from other perceptions. He further classified passions as direct passions and indirect passions. Direct passions are caused directly by the sensation of pain or pleasure. The passion that arises immediately from good or evil, from pain or pleasure that we experience or expect to experience. For example, desire is a direct passion because it is an immediate response to the pleasure that we expect to feel. Other direct passions would include aversion, hope, fear, grief, and joy. On the other hand, we have the indirect passions. These indirect passions are caused by the sensation of pain or pleasure derived from other idea of impression. For example, pride is a passion that emanated from the pleasure you get for possessing something admirable. It could be the intellect, the physique, the property, the family, etc. Pride, therefore, is but a result of the person, the object of the passion, and the quality of the object. Other indirect passions are humility, ambition, vanity, love, hatred, envy, pity, malice, generosity, and the like. However, Hume acceded that there are instances wherein passions can be unreasonable. He said that this could happen when we make a mistake in judgment of our opinion. We make a mistake in judgment or our opinion is wrong. Strictly speaking, it is not passion that can be called unreasonable. In these instances, because it was the judgment or the opinion that was wrong in the very first place. Once the judgment or opinion is corrected, passions yields to reason without any opposition. Now, for Scheller's philosophy of feelings, Max Ferdinand Scheller was an important German ethical philosopher distinguished for his contributions in phenomenology, in ethics, and philosophical anthropology. As a phenomenologist, Max Scheller sought to know what comprised the structures of consciousness, including that of mental acts such as feelings, thinking, resolve, etc., as well as the inherent objects or correlates of these mental acts such as values, concepts, and plans. In Max Scheller's philosophy, the emotion is the most important aspect of human existence. He asserted that feelings or emotions are inherent, objective, and it exists even if you have not experienced it before. The term is a priori, prior to any experience. He also claimed that feelings are independent of the mind and that it corresponds to the divine plan. According to Scheller, human feelings are not chaotic. It is actually strict, exact, and objective. It follows a peculiar form of laws that you cannot avoid and is obligated to follow. He firmly rejected the idea that feelings are in the subconscious and asserted that it is actually the purest sphere of human consciousness. For Scheller, he presented four strata of feelings. He claimed that these strata or levels are constant and it follows an exact order of importance. He called these levels of feelings as the stratification model of emotive life. So the four strata, we have the sensual feelings, the vital feelings, psychic feelings, and the spiritual feelings. According to Scheller, sensual feelings involve bodily pleasure or pain, okay, the experience of the five senses. The other one, we have the vital feelings. The vital feelings are the life functions such as health, sickness, energy, fatigue, etc. And the psychic feelings are about aesthetic, justice, and knowledge from the very word psychic. So it refers to the mind. Lastly, the spiritual feelings deal with the divine. According to Scheller, of the four, it is the spiritual feelings alone that is intentional. This means spiritual feelings are directed to a particular special object or a higher being that is attributed to as the divine. And also, of the four feelings, spiritual feelings is the most difficult to achieve. Because according to Scheller, he believed that values of the holy are the highest of all values because it has the ability to endure through time. Thus, it possessed the nature of intent. For Scheller, he philosophized that among all the four levels, spiritual feeling is the most important. Now, with the question of what is the role of feelings in decision making? Reason plays a role in making moral decision. Philosophers encourage the use of reason in making moral decisions. However, it should be noted too that our moral compasses are also powerfully influenced by feelings. Hume claimed that in any given situation, a person would act based on emotions rather than reason. For example, when your teacher announced that there would be a long quiz next meeting, and you saw your classmate in the mall, and you knew she was absent during the time that it was announced in the class. However, you did not go out of your way to inform her about the said exam or quiz. Why? So for no particular reason really. It could be that you don't like telling her or you were not that close anyway. Or you just passed by another, you barely had a time to talk or etc. On several instances, reasoning in moral decisions is preceded by an initial intuition or gut feel. For instance, in choosing between studying and partying before an exam, you already feel some negative emotions, the feeling of guilt or worry, just thinking about going out rather than studying. The 20th century philosopher Alfred Jules Ayer described two elements in moral judgment, the emotive and the prescriptive elements. Emotive elements in moral decisions meant expressing positive feelings toward a particular act. For example, kindness is good meant you feel positive about acts of kindness. When you feel positively about an act, you'd not only do the act, but you also feel this act should be encouraged that others may follow. This is where the second element, which is the prescriptive, comes in such as saying, be kind to others. The prescriptive element, in a sense, is an instruction or prescription of a particular order. Now, on the question of how emotions help in making the right decisions, although several studies point out that negative effects of emotions in making decisions, contemporary research on how emotions facilitate reasoning is also catching up. Several studies suggest that emotions are the foundation of all our cognitive and behavioral processes, and emotional responses often guide a person in making beneficial choices without any conscious reasoning. In this line of thought, researchers studied two groups of research participants. Group 1 was made up of relatively healthy people with no history of head injury, while the second group was composed of those with decision-making defects resulting from head injury. Both groups were measured while performing gambling tasks. The researchers observed that Group 1 began to choose cards that were to their advantage even before they knew what strategy worked best, while the second group continued to choose disadvantageously even though they already knew what the best card strategy was. Moreover, in the same gambling task, the researchers observed that the skin properties of the first group changed in response to thinking about risky choices, even though the participants did not know the move was actually risky. The second group, on the other hand, never had such reaction. This study suggested that in normal individuals, non-conscious biases guide behavior before conscious knowledge does. This work and the subsequent works that followed indicated that emotions could help in making better choices even without consciously reasoning these choices out. Other studies further suggested that negative feelings make a perfect occasion to develop emotional responses and align it with moral attitudes and goals. There are at least three ways that feelings, especially the negative feelings, help in making the right decision. First, it signals the need to adjust behavior. Second, it can help us learn from our mistakes. And the third, emotional responses can be reshaped as time passes by. Psychologists have long acknowledged that emotions serve as a red flag. Emotions signal that something is happening and that it needs attention. Oftentimes, you get the feelings that something is wrong when you make an incorrect judgment. This red flag aspect in emotion helps in making better decisions. It had been observed too that physiological processes are heightened when incorrect judgments were made, and those who spend more time deliberating on his or her mistake are more likely to correct his or her behavior. The idea that behavior can be changed is a hallmark in psychology. What is important, however, is the idea that emotional responses can be deliberately altered. The psychological state of mindfulness, where you give active and open attention to personal thoughts and feelings, show that with some effort, emotional reactions can be brought in accord with your beliefs and goals. And on this note, emotions are powerful and unavoidable. Absurds of feelings is natural. However, it should not control behavior, nor should it prevent reason. What we do with our feelings is what makes us ethical or unethical.